Here we are again. What we discussed in the third class, first it was Hawks, from the book that you're reading, One for Many, Leadership Style, which I thought was very, very interesting. And I don't know if you remember, but try to remember how does he portray the leader of the future. Nowadays, usually when you talk about leadership, the image that at least comes to my mind is the leader on top telling people at the bottom what to do, or at least leading the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And what Hawk is saying is forget about that, and it starts by leading yourself. It starts by knowing your strengths, by knowing your weaknesses, and working on your strength. There is a lot of research being done by a guy called Marcus Buckingham. And one of the things that he says is, which I find very interesting, is don't try to get what is outside in, but try to get what is in out. Meaning that most of the time we identify our strengths, we identify our weaknesses, and we try to work on our weaknesses, to become better in our weaknesses. And what this person says is don't try to put what is outside, your weaknesses, and try to put them in you and become better at that. Try to identify what you're good at and bring that out, because that is already hard enough to get better in what you're already good at. Try to focus on that. So that's what he says. Hawk says, know yourself, focus in yourself, develop yourself first, forget about the bottom, let the bottom only exist for now. After you have worked in yourself, you know your thoughts, you know your thinking process, you know your limitations, you know your assumptions, then you work laterally. You work on the people around you, on your peers. That's what's most important. And after you have worked on your peers, you go upwards. You influence your leaders, you influence your bosses, so that you can allow your people to produce what they need to produce. You give them challenge, you give your people below you challenges, and then you clear the way for them to be successful. A model that I think is extremely not only cool but exciting, and not only exciting but very motivating as well. If I worked for a leader like that, I'm pretty sure I would be very, very motivated and willing to work hard, I guess. Very good. Another thing that we discussed, you probably heard on our forums, was the airplane exercise. And what does the airplane exercise do? First of all, I ask them, how creative are you? And most of the time they will say, in a scale from 1 to 10, they will say, hey, I'm 6, I'm 7. And then the second question, the follow-up question that I ask is, how creative have you been lately? And most of the time they will say, the students will answer, oh, you know, I'm 4 or 5. So there is, from 1 to 10, they're being creative in a scale of 4. There is usually a gap between how creative we are and how creative we are actually being. There is that gap, and then we try to see if that is really true. And that's why I have the airplane exercise, in which I ask students, I ask the participants to do a paper airplane. You have seen a paper airplane before, right? So I do a paper airplane for them, show them how to do a paper plane. Okay, just like so, and very nice. And then I have a bucket in front of the room, and I divided the class into teams, and the teams have to throw their paper airplanes, and the team that gets the most number of airplanes inside the bucket wins. What I do as well, when I'm the most demonstrating, I get a tape, piece of scotch tape or whatever kind of tape I have in hand, and I make a line, and then I stay behind that line and I show them how to throw the airplane and how the airplane should go inside the bucket. And then I let them play. Most of the time they will do the regular airplane that I just showed you. They will fold the paper and they will go behind the line and they will throw the airplane. And then usually, of course, the results are horrible. They don't get too many airplanes in. So I say, hey, let's start again and rethink your strategy, because you're not being very effective. This is a creative thinking innovation class. You have to think of a better way of doing it. So what they would do most of the time is, well, ask for my permission first of all to make the ball airplane, which is much more effective trying to reach a target. And I will say, you know, whatever, do whatever you want. And most of the time, again, you have one team that is being innovative, doing the paper, doing the ball airplane, throwing the ball airplane, being very effective, getting the ball airplane inside, and the other team usually looks in this array, in this, you know, just frustrated and it's like, oh, these guys are cheating. You shouldn't be doing that because that's cheating. But why is it cheating? I mean, it's a new design of airplanes, the ball airplane. There's no cheating about it. And then sometimes I will also encourage some teams to go beyond the line, to cross the line, and the other team will also complain, usually complain, this is cheating, etc. And then we go through the lessons learned through during the exercise. And what are the lessons learned? First of all, I ask them, when was the time that I told you to stay behind the line? I never tell them to stay behind the line, but just because there is a line there, people assume that they have to stand behind, because that's what we have learned. That's what we have experienced throughout our lives when we play games. When we were young, if there is a line, you stay behind it. I never once said go behind the line, and everybody, it's natural, everybody does. Sometimes you will find one or two people who will throw airplanes beyond the line, but they will immediately, and the third time they will play, they go behind the line. Even though I don't say anything, they will go, because that's social modeling. They model what everybody else is doing. And that, of course, is a huge problem in creativity, because you're just following what everybody else is doing. So this is a little bit of the airplane exercise. I think it's a very cool airplane. Yeah, and what I usually ask people is, in everything that they do from now on, is to question, are the limitations of your problem really there, or they're just inside your mind? These are limitations, these are the lines that you are creating based on your past experiences, but based on your biases, on your habits, on culture, religion, whatever. Or are they really boundaries that really truly exist? Most of the time they don't. These are only internal limitations that we see. And in everything that you do, try to think, what are the limitations that you're imposing? Sometimes people from the outside are imposing these limitations on you, telling you that this cannot be done, this is not the way we do things around here, and you accept that. Sometimes these limitations are very internal, and we are our own worst enemies in that sense. So this is the airplane exercise.